Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. As promised, here's another quick but tasty Chinese-inspired egg roll in a bowl meal, a complete meal that you can make in less than 30 minutes. And this recipe, in my totally humble opinion, is better than takeout because you control the ingredients and the seasonings. Before getting started, I just want to mention that this is a recipe which I adapted because I don't intend this to be a spring roll filling recipe. In other words, I adapted the ingredients in such a way to make this into a full and satisfying spring roll in a bowl with shrimp and pork. And as you can tell by the photo, there's a lot more shrimp, in other words, a lot more protein in this version rather than just a filling version. In spite of that, it still maintains a wonderful complex flavor of a spring roll. But if you want to see what else you can serve with this spring roll in a bowl, please watch the entire video as I will show you what I like to serve with this recipe. And also please check out the end cards where I always select additional recipes along the same theme of the presenting video, in this case, in addition to the Chinese, other Asian food recipes. Okay, the first thing to go over are the macros. So the macronutrient ratio for the spring roll in a bowl with shrimp and pork is 1.7 to 1, with 11.9 grams of total carbs, 3.3 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in 8.6 net carbs per really generous serving, as if you were making this a complete meal on its own. Because it's good practice to first prepare all your ingredients, I first get everything I need and assemble it on my table. Then I weigh out and cut or grate all my ingredients individually. One thing I'd like you to note that I do differently in this recipe than some others is that I get my snow peas and then trim both ends. And after trimming, I cut the length of the snow pea into matchsticks, just like this. And also, as part of my prep step, I grated my fresh green ginger and garlic, and I sliced the mushrooms. And as with most Asian recipes, I also cut the carrots into matchsticks. And in this instance, I cut the celery into thin diagonal slices. One last thing, my shrimp were quite large, so I cut each shrimp into half. You don't need to do this if you're using small shrimp. I'd also like to point out the bamboo shoots I was using are quite wide, so I cut each bamboo shoot into half. The next thing is to get your mixing bowl, and to it, add your room temperature ground pork. And to start seasoning it, first by sprinkling the salt on top, and then also the white pepper. By the way, white pepper has a milder flavor than black pepper and is often used in place of black pepper in Asian recipes. White and black pepper both come from the same berry, but the white pepper is actually the ripe version of the berry. And because I like to blend my ingredients into the meat as I go, the next thing to do is just take your spatula and fold everything to incorporate the salt and the pepper into the meat. Now drizzle your Chinese rice wine on top. If you don't have Chinese rice wine, you can use a very dry sherry or white wine, but Chinese cooking wine is very inexpensive, so do get a bottle and keep it on hand because it'll last a long time. And also sprinkle the meat with 1/2 teaspoon of your garlic powder and again combine with a spatula. To cook, you can use either a wok or a large frying pan. Today I'm going to use a wok, which you place on your stovetop set to medium-high heat. First, add your olive oil or avocado oil if you prefer, and then swirl the oil to coat the entire pan. You'll notice that in this demonstration, I actually forgot to add my grated ginger and garlic at this point into the sizzling oil, but this is where you actually should do it, and I advise that you put this ingredient in first before adding the pork. And cook these two ingredients for about 30 seconds until they become aromatic. Then place the seasoned ground pork into the wok or frying pan and cook, tossing frequently until the meat is completely done. It's really important that you keep cooking until the meat is browned and cooked well. Your pork must be well done and not raw before you add the vegetables. Okay, since my meat appears to be done at this point, I made a clearing in the center, and I'm first going to add my napa, also called Chinese cabbage. Here I'd like to mention that I prefer to use the bottom half of the Napa Chinese cabbage because this portion of the cabbage is thicker, and after you cut it into thin ribbons, it will stay crispier as you stir fry. And the tips are really good for a salad or in other recipes. Then add the sliced mushrooms, the carrot matchsticks, and the celery slices. And here I'm adding the bamboo shoots. And lastly, add the matchstick snow peas. And after all your vegetables are added, give everything a light toss. And at this point, it's time to season the vegetable mix with a second sprinkling of salt and white pepper. Drizzle with tamari, which is a sugar-free, gluten-free soy sauce, or if you prefer, you can use coconut aminos. Toss again in order to distribute the seasonings throughout the vegetables. At this point, take your fish sauce and drizzle it all over the vegetables and toss to combine. As I mentioned at the beginning of the cooking process, I forgot to add the grated ginger and garlic at the beginning, so I'm going to make a little clearing and put my grated garlic and ginger in now and allow it to cook for about 30 seconds or so, just till it gets fragrant, and then combine the garlic and ginger with the rest of the ingredients. Oops, I almost forgot. At this point, add the sprouts on top. Cook only for 1 more minute. It is really important, I can't stress this enough, do not overcook the vegetables. Then drizzle the toasted sesame seed oil on top of everything and toss again, but this time toss really well. Cook for about 1 to 2 minutes, just long enough until the vegetables are starting to cook but are still very crispy and have a vivid color. This is one of the things I really like about stir frying. You have a medley of vegetables that are brightly colored and al dente, and in this way they maintain most of their nutritional value. Then use a metal spoon or a slotted spoon to remove everything from the hot wok or your pan, and put everything into a cool serving plate. And do remember, you may think that the vegetables are not done, but the heat of the vegetables will continue to cook everything as they cool on the platter. And that is why I tell you it's really important not to overcook your vegetables while you're tossing them in the wok. After scooping everything out of your wok, you'll notice that there's a bit of liquid or sauce at the bottom of the wok or pan. That's exactly what you want. It's perfect. Just set the wok aside for a moment so that you have time to season your shrimp by sprinkling salt and garlic powder and the fish sauce on top, and tossing the shrimp well in order to ensure that each piece is well coated. Now put your wok back onto the heat element, and to the liquid that was left in your wok or frying pan, add the remaining toasted sesame seed oil, stir the oil into the sauce, and then put the seasoned raw shrimp into the wok. In order to ensure that your shrimp cooks evenly, frequently toss them as they cook until the shrimp are well done. In other words, they're a nice solid pink color and there's no translucent parts. This should only take 2 to 3 minutes. And again, don't overcook because the shrimp will become very rubbery. Now for the last step, which is to combine the pork and vegetable mixture with the shrimp you just finished cooking. You can do this either by placing the shrimp on top of the pork vegetable mixture on your serving platter and tossing everything together, or take the serving platter and put the pork vegetable mixture back into the wok where you have the shrimp and toss as you're cooking for about 30 to 60 seconds. This will add additional flavor to this spring roll in a bowl with shrimp and pork mixture. Now remove everything from the wok or pan, and you can serve in a big bowl, or you can distribute and serve in individual serving bowls. As I've already mentioned, this can be a complete, satisfying, very nutrient-dense meal. Or if you want a bit more variety, as you would have when you're in a Chinese restaurant, I would recommend that you make my Chinese 5-minute fried cauli rice, which is based and adapted from an authentic Chinese recipe that I was shown how to cook by one of my fellow university students who was from Hong Kong. As well, I like to serve my ginger garlic bok choy with this spring roll in a bowl with shrimp and pork meal. I think that the flavor of all 3 dishes complement each other very well and leave you feeling both satiated and satisfied, and it really does feel like you've been to a nice Chinese restaurant. One last thing, any leftovers can be stored individually in airtight containers in your fridge for up to several days. I hope you'll give this recipe a go, and please do leave me a comment or tell me what other Chinese or Asian recipes you would like me to feature on this channel. If you like this recipe and my videos in general, please subscribe, tell a friend about this channel, and most importantly, please press your notification bell, scroll down to notify all so that you'll be alerted when I post my next video. And I'd also like to thank you for watching my video. Have a wonderful day, and I do hope you come back and see the next video. The link for the printable spring roll in a bowl with shrimp and pork recipe, as well as the other recipes mentioned in this video, are available in the description below.